Welcome to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for coming back to our trail and ultra running show. This week, we have a really special interview with second place finisher at this year's Tour de Géants, Martin Perrier, a Kailas Fuga pro athlete, someone that I got the pleasure of following around Aosta just a month ago. We sat down just about 10 days after the race, so everything was so fresh in my memory and also in his as he was starting to get back into the mental swing of things. I really enjoyed this conversation, some really great insights into his strengths, what he thinks it takes to succeed at the race, and just really some really interesting insights on the sport and his abilities and many other things. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed it. But before we get there, just got to say thanks to our sponsors. I hope you can support them too. XMiles for all your nutrition needs and all that type of stuff. Discount link in the description or in the bio if you're on social media. And then Tantrums, best packs in the game. Check out the 6 litre pack, Trail Talk 15 for 15% off there. And finally, GOREWEAR for our massive 30% discount with I Run Over Mountains 30. One use per email address, so remember that whenever you're ordering. But without further delay, let's roll the interview with Martin. Martin Perrier, welcome to Trail Talk. For the audience, I would just love you to do bit of an introduction. Let us know who you are, where you're connecting from, and maybe how you're feeling just a couple of weeks, not even a couple of weeks after the Tour de Géants.
Yeah, hi Aaron. Thanks a lot for having me. What could I say? I'm a big ultra runner who doesn't like to run. Basically, I need to get myself out the door to get running, but I love being in the mountain. I've been an ultra runner for the past almost 10 years, taking it very seriously for the past 2 or 3, let's say, especially when I discovered Tour de Géants. Tour de Géants is the crazy loop that you know pretty well now in Italy, 350 kilometers and 25,000 meters of elevation gain. And that just got me from, I love running out there to, ultra running is definitely a passion of mine. It's a way of life even. And I'm going to do that for the rest of my life, basically. So I live in Switzerland, in Geneva, so near the mountain. I'm French originally. And yeah, that's the main thing about me is this passion for the mountains. That's what I'm trying to live by and to share with everybody I talk to. And I think you and I, the first time we talked, we had this in common, this passion for the sport and the mountain.
So what is your sort of athletic history? What did you play sports as a kid? What were the things that interested you in the first 2.5 sort of decades of your life that then leading on to that planted the seed of trail running and where that's gone to now?
I would say I've always been into sports, like my dad and his 3 brothers. I had a brother myself, and we've been playing a lot of sports, especially racket sports, table tennis, badminton, squash. I played a lot of those. I played golf as well. I have a cousin who's a professional golfer. So I started playing when I was a kid, and myself, I was at a really high level in amateur golf where I was hesitating at some point in going into pro golfing, but it's just so demanding and so hard that I went to something else. But it was kind of competitive sports, but not elite level. But again, tried a bunch of different things, and that's when I lived in the US about 10, 12 years ago that I started running. Did a couple of half marathons, discovered obstacle racing with Spartan Race, and then I was hooked. And that's when I really realized that, first of all, I was not too bad at it. I wasn't great by any means at this time, but first half of the race, let's say, in the field, and that got me into this, and just thinking, hey, can I get better at this? And mostly, where are my limits? Can I? Oh, I did 20K. Can I do 30? I did 30. Can I do 50? Etc. Etc. That's what got me into it.
So you thought that pursuing a career in professional golf was too difficult, so you pursued a career in running 200 miles over several mountain passes in 60 plus hours of running. You thought that was easier?
Yeah, exactly. Took the easy way out, you know? No, funny thing is that something I mentioned is whenever you are into running, be it in the trails on the road, either you just want to enjoy the process and it's fine, just enjoy whatever you're doing, or you want to improve. And if you want to improve, there's two ways, two avenues you can go, right? Is either you improve your speed or you improve your endurance. And if you improve your speed, you stay in your current distance, be it 5K, 10K, 20K, marathon, and then you just try to get faster. Or the endurance, you just start to go further into, oh, what can I do in terms of distance and duration of the event? And the funny thing is, it's actually lazy people who go for the long one. It may sound counterintuitive because, it feels like, oh my God, running for 100K is incredible. But the truth is, we end up running long because we're too lazy to run fast. If you want to improve and get faster, you need to do the interval training. You need to do short bursts. You need to really have the taste of blood in your mouth. And we're not like this. Ultra runners, most of us we start at least kind of lazy. And it's a bit easier to go at an easy pace than do it for very long. So you keep going like this towards long distance. And then the problem that I had is I chose this easy way. But then once you're going long distance and you want to be really good at it, there's no way around it. You have to get back into training for being fast. So I got to that long distance and then I kind of hit that ceiling where like, all right, I'm going to have to do these intervals that I, fled for so long. And had to do both in the end.
As a runner, I can certainly identify with that. And I can remember there was years in my earlier running career maybe I shouldn't call it a career, my earlier running life, where in season you were trail and mountain running, and then it came round to winter and, you threw in a marathon training block. And that was the thought that, oh, well, I'm running 50 miles in the spring. I'll run, 26.2 faster, and you're doing your 10Ks and your 5Ks, your half marathon in the build up to that. Did you go through a period where you were trying this type of thing too? Or did you have, with where you're living and things, did you have like a mountain sports off season?
No, yeah, I exactly did something like this. Up until not that long ago, actually, up until my first Tour des Géants, so 2-3 years ago, I was definitely following a similar schedule. I might still have a couple of trail races in the winter. There's a bit less. Being in Geneva, it's hard in Switzerland, obviously, but going to Spain or Italy, you can find a couple races in the south of those countries, even in January. So I did work on that speed. Now it's only when I discovered Tour des Géants that I realized I can't spend 3 or 4 months. I mean, I can, of course I can, but I don't want to spend 3 or 4 months of the year running on flat when it's so important to build your mountain legs. So now I'd rather be, even in the winter, either doing mountain sports or even if it's at the gym, doing something a little bit more specific. So being climbing either on, Stairmaster, like stair machine, or on the treadmill that's going way up. Just do something that's a little bit more specific than going really fast, which is not really useful when you're running for 60 hours in the mountain.
So let's just touch on the training a little bit. So we're talking about Stairmaster, incline treadmills and things like this. You're living close to the mountains, so you're doing that in the winter. What does training look like in, let's say, December, the opposite point of the year?
Yeah. As I mentioned at the beginning, to kind of define myself, and I was not kidding, I don't like running that much. What that means is I don't like running for the sake of running. Being on my shoes and getting out there for, an hour, 2 hours, if I'm on my own, it really is a struggle for me. I don't enjoy it. I don't like the thoughts of doing something kind of for nothing. Even of course, it's part of training, but it really is hard for me. Whereas if you ask me, hey, want to, go do 50K, whatever, in the mountains, even if it's not in the mountain, but the social side of things, you tell me, let's wake up at 5 and go running. I'll be like, yeah, sure. But on my own, if I have to wake up at 8 just to go running, I'm going to struggle if I'm just doing 10K next to my place. So the winter is particularly tricky for me. Because I'm doing such a big summer, I take it also to kind of rest. So I'm not doing nothing, but the point is really to go easier on the volume. And then I try to spend a bunch of time again at the gym, Stairmaster. I'm doing several hours per week, because here at least I can put a movie, a podcast, or something on in front of me on YouTube, and it's gonna be easy on my joints, obviously, because there's going to be less shocks than if you are running on the concrete. And it's going to be easy on my mind as well, because I can just, enjoy and not have to bother with just running for the sake of running. Some people need it. They feel like addicted to it. Like, oh, I need to get my 10K. I really don't care. If I spend 2 or 3 weeks without running, I'm not getting cranky or anything like this. It really is fine for me. But then in the summer, I go all out with a very polarized training where I'm going to still have so many rest days. It's 365 days. I had probably between 100 and 150 rest days this year, which is crazy for a professional or semi-professional runner. But then on the weekends when I'm not resting, then I'm going to go for crazy days. So during the summer, it's going to be, from Monday to Wednesday or Thursday, I might run once or twice. And then from Thursday, Friday to Sunday, it's going to be 6, 7, 8, 10-hour day every day in the mountain. So that means big volume per week, but very polarized. So with many, many rest days.
That's interesting. It's also so fun that there are so many different personalities, but there's so many different styles as well. And essentially what you're doing is super specific to the types of races that you enjoy participating in and competing at. What do you think like your strengths are as an athlete, and also, I mean, I'm talking physically and mentally here.
So I don't have necessarily the big engine, and that's why I love Tour des Géants. The longer you go and the more variables there are and the more different strength come into play, right? On a 50K, you just got to be fit. When you go for, and 50K is already pretty long. If we're talking 5K, that's just pure fitness, right? No matter the strategy, no matter the gear, there's no sleep strategy or food strategy. When you're doing 5K, it's just your training. If you're fast, and that's it. So that's not necessarily my strength, because again, I didn't come from a very athletics oriented background. I didn't do any track and field or not that much road running before getting into trail. So I don't have necessarily that big speed, and that's why I'm looking more at longer events. So my strength is not necessarily going to be on that power. And in the mountains, it translates to the uphill speed. I'm always a bit slower uphill than most of my competitors. And I used to get dropped my first few Tour de Géants. I used to get dropped on the uphill, but then downhill, I can objectively say that I'm probably the best runner on at least ultra running. If you're looking at the world champs that happened recently or sky running, some of those guys are crazy fast downhill. But in the world of ultra running, 400 miles or plus, then I'm really among the fastest out there. I'm actually getting Strava records, that comes during Tour de Géants. I think this year I got 3 or 4 Strava comes on downhill during a 300-kilometer race, which should not happen in theory, right? So yeah, I think it really is the downhill in terms of the technical skills. I have really strong legs and I'm a really good technique as well. So I'm not slowing down when I go down. I just go, which allows me to get faster than other people downhill. But then also when I get to the bottom, I'm actually recovered. That's my biggest strength. It's not a joke. I get to the bottom and I feel recovered and ready to go back up. Whereas other people who might have tried to follow me with a different technique, they get down there just behind me, but their legs are toast. And I'm actually feeling great. I can go back up pretty fast. So I think that's the main strength.
That was one thing that really surprised me. Thinking back to whenever I was following you around the Aosta Valley, I think it was around 250, 270 kilometers or something. And you come over the call and you just descended like, okay, I'm going to just make an excuse for me. I had a couple of cameras. I wasn't ready for you bombing downhill, but like you dropped me. I was expecting to stay with you longer. I expected it to be, with respect, some sort of ultra shuffle downhill, conserving energy, conserving muscles. Like everyone, like they say that the weak the weakest link is the quads, you know, the legs and the quads go first in these types of things. So how are you doing it? How are the legs lasting so long that you're able to descend fast, properly fast, 2 and 3 days into a race?
Yeah, that was pretty funny when I saw you. It was in the middle of nowhere, and I was, again, happy to see you. I'm like, oh, he's going to get a great shot. But then I started thinking, oh, if he was planning on following me downhill, I'm going to have to disappoint because I couldn't wait for you behind. Like, that happens all the time, in races where people start to follow me downhill with the cameras. And they go, yeah, go as fast as you want. I'll be following. And I'm like, they shouldn't have said that, and they always kind of struggle behind. So, well, I have a kind of a theory, which is a bit more than a theory, because I proved it many times myself and with a lot of my clients, because part of my job is also in coaching for ultra running. Basically, there's 4 ways to go down the mountain, and in any race, just ways to go down. And they're going to have different costs and rewards, let's say. First one is to go walking. You're maybe tired or you just go walking. It's going to be really easy in terms of, the physical demands because there's not going to be any shock on the knees and you can just go super easy. However, you're going to lose a lot of time. It's not very efficient, right? Then at the far opposite of the spectrum, there's bombing downhill. By bombing, I mean really pushing like it's just like your life depends on it. This is good only for the last descent of a race, if you still have the energy, right? Because it's obviously much more dangerous, much more taxing, because you're actually pushing on top of the gravity helping you. And you can only save, it's going to be the most efficient, of course, like you're going to be really fast down there, but it's going to cost you. So it will save you a minute or two on a big downhill, but that's it. So it's not something that you can do during the race. It's only at the very end. On skyrunning, they have 1 uphill, 1 downhill in many races. So that you just go all out. But that's not something that you can do in ultra, again, except for that last descent, provided you still have some energy. So those are the 2 extremes. And then in the middle, that's where you have 2 things that people often mix up. The first one is running, like taking it easy, what we say, and kind of slowing down on the way. And the other one is running without the brakes. Of course, you're going to have to brake at some point, but really just no braking. The first one, obviously, when you're braking every time is going to it's going to be slower, obviously, while the one without the brakes is going to be faster. And it feels like the first one is easier. You hear so many people on a race like Tour or any 100-miler, so many people say, no, I'm saving my quads because like you said, it's hard and it's on the long run, I need to save my quads. The problem is that's why they have it wrong. They have it backwards. It actually costs more to save your quads, let's say, and just to brake on every single stride. The problem is that's where to save the pain on the knees, that's where the quads are going to work a lot to slow you down. So every single step downhill, they're going to slow down and burn their quads. Whereas I'm barely touching the ground. I'm not pushing on my quads. That's also taxing. But what I'm doing, if you're just finding the sweet spots, it is not taxing because you need to have good legs, right? Let me just put that back in context. Of course, not like a beginner cannot just go and try that. Ever since I've been running trails, so 10, 12 years, I've been just letting it rip without pushing, but just no braking when I go downhill. And you need to love it as well. If you don't, it's going to be tricky. And then basically I developed that technique where I know where to put my feet and I spend very little time on the ground. I'm not braking. My feet are already moving to the next step. So whenever you're spending energy going down slowly, I'm actually saving energy going down fast. So that's the main thing.
I mean, you make it sound super easy and everyone will be going, I'm just going to do that on my next run. Sure, now the case has been cracked and the problem has been solved, but it's not that easy. Like, are you conditioning the legs as well so that they can, I know you're saying you're not using the quads, but like if you're going down, there's impact from every foot. And I do know the feeling you're talking about. If we consider someone that's actively braking, we can all identify with that feeling compared to that other method that you're talking about is very playful. It's like that Killian form of descent, and the arms are kind of moving and you're kind of like flowing almost down.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that I can still flow downhill and burn out my legs. So I'm not doing it right. So give us some takeaways that could help me and some others. Or how, like, what is the thing that you're teaching your clients to help them with this?
So yeah, there's a couple of things. Of course, you can prepare your quads by having stronger legs. So a little bit at at the gym, there's a few things that you can do. But again, I'm not necessarily a big proponent of that. Just doing a lot of training, doing a lot of downhill, doing every single one of your downhill with that method, for me, is the best thing to do. If you look at a Killian, he didn't do anything to prepare his quad. And again, he's a bit out there because it's just so different, that guy. But um, it's just some running. So the more you do the running downhill, and the more you're going to improve like this. And I'll get back to that in a minute. So you could prepare your quad. There's something that I love is compression gear. I have some compression gear on my quads that reduces dramatically the amount of vibration on your legs, and that helps a lot with saving my quads. One time I forgot, in the past 3-4 years, one time I forgot my compression shorts. It was in Madeira last year, Madeira Island Ultra. And I felt it like crazy. After 70K, I was like, I'm cooked. So that helps a lot. Personally, I mean, I'm not saying everybody should be using it, but at least everybody should be trying it.
And is that more than just like like a half tight kind of compression? Is it more like a compressed sport type of compression?
Yeah. So I'm using a brand called XBionic. I'm not in partnership with them, so I can't really, I'm not like, I don't get any anything from recommending them. But it's a super high end brand. I'm always trying to find them as at a discount somewhere, because they're really, really pricey. That's kind of the problem. But for me, they've been incredible. And some people have other brands, but yeah, I've been loving them, and there really is a serious compression and serious gear, not just it's a little bit tighter. Really, like it's a really smart piece of tech, let's say. So that is really helpful. I saw a guy the other day who actually ran with me, and he said, "Oh yeah, but you're using the X Bionic, almost like it's cheating." I'm like, "Come on!" Of course, he was joking, but it really is a great gear. Now, let's not pretend that it's just the gear that's going to make you go super fast, but so there's a few things that you can do here. Obviously, the shoes as well. If you have something with enough cushioning that you don't, if every time you set your foot on the ground, your feet hurt, you're not going to be able to let it rip, because it increases the amount of stress and pain on the feet. My legs and knees are fine, but my feet take a beating. That's for sure, because again, when you're going fast, the feet get really hammered. So same thing. It's really by training them that your feet get used to that. And then again, I'm getting back to it from the feet and the quads perspective, is just doing a lot of that training. And there's a difference between going uphill and going downhill in terms of what will trigger some actual adaptations. When you're going uphill, even if you go easy and slow, you will still improve your endurance and kind of your speed. You will need interval training if you really want to step up. But even if you don't do any intervals, just do some volumes uphill, you're going to improve, even if it's just a small amount. By staying in your comfort zone, you're still going to improve a little bit. Downhill, it doesn't work like this. Downhill, let's say there's your comfort zone, which is the green zone. There's the orange zone, when it's a little bit like taking some risk and letting a little bit of the control out. And then the red zone, where you go all out, like I said before, and you barely control anything, and there's a big risk of falling. I would not suggest spending any time on the red zone unless you know what you're doing and you're finishing a race and you have this guy to pass in front of you. Apart from that, don't spend time on the red zone. However, spend as much time as possible in that orange zone. If you spend a lot of your time taking it easy, as they say, running downhill, you're not going to improve. You're not going to improve because your brain is not going to get used to analyze the ground faster. Your body is not going to get used to that. And you will always be braking. So you're training your body to get destroyed by the downhill and your mind. So what I suggest, and that's true in training, but also in racing, is to spend a bunch of time in the orange zone, running without braking, kind of being a little bit afraid, just a little bit. And the more time you spend there, and the more that green zone is getting bigger, and you feel more comfortable at higher speeds. So I would recommend people to actually go a bit faster without braking. And if you're tired or you need some rest, actually do rest and walk a little bit. So I would suggest, for example, do 5 minutes without braking and then 1 minute of walking, instead of doing 6 minutes of braking on every steps. kind of, it's doing interval training, but without pushing. But learn to enjoy and embrace the gravity and let it do its job. And you're just there to be able to embrace it and not prevent it from doing its job. And the longer you can go without braking, without preventing gravity from doing its job, and the better you're going to be. But you have to go in that orange zone. If you spend 20 hours a week running, like braking, you're just going to learn how to brake even more. So your quads are going to develop a little bit. They're going to be a bit stronger, of course, but you're not going to learn the technique and the mental side of things where you actually let it go and have fun and be in the flow.
I've always personally felt that the more time I've spent in the mountains, descending is where my legs actually get stronger, because I'm using the bike and doing uphill sessions on the bike and doing hill reps and things normal weeks. But whenever I'm going and spending spring and summer in the mountains, I've found that it's the descending where my legs start to grow, and I can physically see a difference in the quad. And so as a result of that, I ended up, I love descending. Like, I come from a fell running background. I love to bomb it downhill. that other side of that far extreme end of the spectrum. Didn't mean to go down the downhill training rabbit hole, but I think people will have some takeaways from that might help them. One of your other superpowers, I would say, has to be the ability to it's something in the realms of recovery, because let's just touch on the Trailcat 200 miler earlier on this year. You were sitting in second place, 140k into the race, and the sensations and everything were all good, but you got stopped basically because of bad weather, right? So that was a Friday, I think. Then there was a day between that, and then you started the 80k on the Sunday, and you went out and won the 80k. And I think the 80k it was getting close to 5,000 meters of gain. So that's something else that I see with the best athletes, is their ability to just recover, or maybe they're taking on less fatigue, so it's less to recover from. Could you talk a bit about those qualities in yourself and how you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And that's something that it's going to be a bit hard to suggest any tips and training to get that, because that may be the part where the genetics come into play a little bit more. There's not, I never believe that everything is 100% genetics, right? Like, even Usain Bolt, of course, had great genetics, but he probably worked as hard as anybody else or even harder to get to where he got. Yeah, like I said, I don't have necessarily the biggest engine. I'm not the most powerful, but I do have probably some high capacity for quick recovery. That goes as well with, like you said, there's a bit, because of my technique, especially downhill, for example, I end up having less damage to my body. So after a big race, sometimes you're completely destroyed. After this 140k, I wasn't necessarily destroyed by the end. Several things that come to play as well is the conditioning of your mind, right? When you know you're going out there for a marathon, at kilometer 20, let's say, halfway point, you're not going to get nearly as tired as if you did a half marathon, and the pace is a bit slower, but barely. So the idea is you're going to get out there for 40k. So your brain is ready to cover 40k, and it's ready also to get struggling at 30k. Whereas, for the Trailcat, it was 300k. So I was ready for it. So when I got stopped because of, again, crazy cold weather at the moment, like the race director told me afterwards, he saw me, gave me a hug and said, "Oh man, you were really at the worst place at the worst time." I was just at the top of a mountain with the massive hailstorm arriving. There's nothing I could do. In a matter of minutes, I'm like, oh, this race that was going perfectly well just got stopped, for me personally and some other people. But the leader was actually a bit further in the woods, and he managed to kind of stay in sheltered. He struggled a lot. I mean, he had to go through crazy weather as well, right? Not saying he had it easy, but for me, it was just, there's no way to continue. Anyway, but that was only 140k out of those 300. So my body and mind were so conditioned to go another 30 hours that it felt like I was just getting started, basically. So yeah, there was a part of that where I ended up the next day giving up my chip or my GPS, and they told me, "Oh, you could do the 50 miles if you want." then realizing like, yeah, I'm actually feeling great. And that helps with how much volume that you're doing, right? Like I've been doing a bunch of volumes for years now, so it feels much easier. The past 2 years, 2 weeks after Tour des Géants, I was already back to 100-miler racing. Not at my full form, obviously, but still being able, like I don't have any pain or anything like this. So that's probably beyond the regular thing where you need to sleep well, you need to eat well. By eat well, I'm not saying like, oh, you need to eat exactly the right thing, but just don't be always restricting yourself food-wise. Just eat. That's half of the job. So recovering is mostly down to those two things. And then there's a little bit of genetics that come into play and the amount of, again, of volume that you're doing. If you're doing, I'll be probably at 300,000 meters of elevation gain this year, just in running. So when I do, even Tour des Géants, when I do 25K, it's only a fraction of what I do each year. So your body gets used to it a bit more easily. But then a big part is going to be genetics.
Are you telling me that you have like a normal, regular diet, or do you have special things that you will, when I say special, I'm not talking about, secrets, or, I just mean like, do you have set protocols that you would do after a race to help the body recover? It could be as simple as, I hear people talking in the trail talk community about, I get really swollen feet after 100-milers, and I'm just say to them, I don't know if you know this, but it's really beneficial to just sit with your legs up for like 30 minutes each evening or multiple times a day after a big effort like that. So like, what are your go-to recovery protocols?
No, I don't have anything. Again, people like to look for shortcuts and try to find some like the secret sauce. And honestly, it's sleeping well and eating well. This year after tour, my recovery was not as good as the past few years because I couldn't sleep that well. I mean, my sleep was fine when I went to bed. It's not like I struggled, but the few days after, I had a couple of friends, really good friends of mine, finishing their race at 3 a.m. in the morning, and my apartment was right by the finish line. So I would either wait up and not go to bed, or I put an alarm and I would wake up in the middle of the night to go cheer on them and wait for them at the finish line. So that's not great for sleep. Then I went to Paris for a couple of things for work. So I had to either go to bed really late or wake up super early. So after the race, it took me 10 days to have a proper night of rest. So there's no secret. I mean, I usually recover pretty well. This year I struggled. Yeah, because I couldn't sleep. And that's the risk, for many people. They finish their race in the weekend, and then Monday they get back to work. And then there's the risk, and there's the rhythm of daily life. If they have kids, then you cannot just, like a pro athlete, just put everything on hold and be like, I'm going to rest for a week. Well, no, I mean, you only have so much holidays and stuff like that. So there's not too much of a secret. Of course, food-wise, it's getting something that has some protein, that have a lot of carbs, obviously. But then whatever you feel like eating. For me, there's something was like the comfort food, where you need to help your body recover, but your mind as well. So if somebody tells me, oh, you need to eat Brussels sprouts and quinoa for a week, that's better for you, I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to get a burger, maybe put some quinoa in there if you like, but so it's just eating well and as in enough, drinking well, obviously, a lot of water, and then sleeping. Sleeping is you see people like biting some of their sleep to just use some type of, the electrostimulation or the compression on, for their legs, or doing some ice bath. I'm like, sure, those things can work, but they should never be at the expense of sleeping. There's nothing in your life that can be better for recovery than sleep. And every year I'm more and more convinced about it.
It's a really great point. And if you think about all of these trends that come and go, essentially, but it's like training. It's the basics that make improvement, and the basics are the 90, the 95, the 98%. And it's the same with recovery. It's like eat adequately and rest. But you're right, you're so right in what you said about everyone, not everyone, but a large percentage of people look for the shortcuts, whether it's it's the buying the shoes instead of doing the training, or it's wearing the boots instead of going to sleep. They're trying to by the fitness or by the recovery instead of just going to bed. It's not sexy, it's not interesting, but it's top of the charts in terms of recovery. So I'm glad you made that point.
And that's something great that you make as well. The fact is, yeah, it's not sexy. It's not like, it's not great. Like, I'm personally, I'm not gonna say I hate sleeping. I love sleeping, but I hate going to sleep because I feel like, oh no, but I'm wasting time. I could be up. I could be doing whatever. I could be. So I was in a way pretty happy that my friends were showing up in the middle of the night. No, more seriously, I would have preferred for them to arrive daylight, but I don't, yeah, I don't like this idea of like, okay, it's the day is over now. It feels like it's time that you're never gonna get back and that you could be using more. But no, that is actually the most useful thing you can do. So when you want a quick trick to recover faster, start by sleeping 8-9 hours per night, and then come to me and we can discuss for some extra stuff. Because then why not? You can always look for extra. Let's start with the basics: 8-9 hours of sleep, and then suddenly that works really well. Like, yeah, that's probably the reason.
I love that you said that that point about you don't want to go to bed because there's so many things that you want to do. That's how I like to go to bed at quite reasonably early, because I'm like dying to get up in the morning. It sounds so corny, but I'm almost like excited when I wake up in the morning. I like just want to get up and get out and do some stuff, but that does require you to not be going to bed at 11 o'clock. Like I will go to bed at about 9, because then you can still get a good sleep and you can get up early and do it all again, whatever again is. Let's dig in a little bit more into the training, because I had a really fun dive into your Strava account.
Yep.
Clicking on all of the weekly spikes to see what was that, what was the lead up of that, what was after that. And some of the stuff that you did before tour was, from what I would think, absolute perfection in terms of training for the Tour de Géants. So I noticed that you summited Mont Blanc from
Yep.
La Houche in one of the weeks, but then pretty much straight after that, maybe a week after that, you went and did 2 days.
2 days
You
after.
did hut to hut on the Tour de Glacier course, the 450-kilometer course, which, I mean, first off, I love that. I'm like, yes, I'm fast packing the 330. He's fast packing the 450. Why did I not think of that? Talk about that training and the specificity of that, and like the objective. How did it go? Just talk about the feelings around that training.
Yeah. It's so yeah. Thanks for what you're saying. I it's hard for us, especially at the front where it's hard not to compare, right? You're looking at the other people, like, oh, what should I do compared to XYZ? Or maybe not actually using other people to compare, but it's kind of a natural thing. You upload your Strava, then you see somebody coming there, like, huh. So I never let myself get affected or change what I want to do based on that. But it's always good to have a look. And then you wonder, like, is it good? You're doing something, it's great, but at the same time, I wasn't doing speed work, for example, when I'm doing 10 days in the mountain, and then, somebody's doing a speed session. Oh, maybe so that's what's a bit tricky, but I was pretty happy with what I did. I had a low point at the end of spring, beginning of summer, where I had a low iron levels. And I got a bit scared because I was completely dead. I couldn't do anything. I did a race in Switzerland in June where I was completely destroyed. And I was a bit scared, like, can I get back to it in time for tour while still training? Because I could have just rested for 2 months, but then I would have been detrained. So can I still put those big volumes and arrive properly at tour with the risk of not doing enough, the risk of doing too much and then when I showed up for tour, I didn't know whether I did the right thing or not. I mean, I knew it wasn't completely crazy, but I told my crew, like, we'll see after the first climb, and then at the first live base, if I have the speed, if I'm in good shape, or maybe I overdid it or whatever. And then, I was happy to see after 50K, I told them, like, I'm half an hour faster than last year, but pushing a bit less. So I felt like they were a bit scared, right? Because your crew's like, you're going too fast. I'm always saying you shouldn't start too fast. But I told them, I kept my effort level and it's easier than last year and I'm faster. So that was kind of the confirmation that everything that I'd done had been not only okay, but actually very effective. So the point for me is, like I said before, is really kind of a polarized training where I'm going to do very big days and a lot of rest days. I hate the idea of, oh, go every day for an hour and a half or 2 hours. I was working with a coach last year. I had to stop it halfway through, and it was one of the best coaches in the world about ultra running. And I had to stop it because he kept giving me, and I told him that I didn't like it, but he kept giving me just the, oh yeah, go do 90 minutes every day. And I told him, I can't do that. First of all, because I don't like it. It pains me mentally. It's hard for me to get out the door to do this. And what I do best is going for very long days in the mountain. So I don't necessarily look at it from a weekly perspective. If you look at my weeks, yeah, it's going to do like this. If you look at my month, then it's going to be much more interesting, because then it's kind of a gradual climb. And so I don't look week to week. I don't look month to month either. It just goes to show that you're looking at the granularity is going to be a whole completely different thing. So when I do the Tour de Glacier and I start on the Monday, I do a big week, and then I have the week after, it's going to be a bit lower. And it's going to look like it's a crazy spike. But the week before I was resting, and the week before I had a big race. So if you look at the month, it actually is kind of have a nice slope to it once getting closer to Tour. So yeah, I'm going to look at big volumes like this and organize everything else around it. So some of those peaks are going to be races. I'm doing a bit more than the average, let's say, in terms of racing. I might do between 8 and 10 ultras every year, from 100K to 350. And some of them are going to be dictating the whole training. So I'm already planning for next year, and I know I have some big races, and I'm going to plan this kind of climb in terms of volume, getting to those. But this climb are always going to be with big mountains and following what seems fun. So I know, for example, I need to do a big weekend somewhere, and I'll do that every weekend because that's what I love to do. So I'm going to look at, oh yeah, Tour de Glacier, let's do 10 days. And then how can I arrange that? What do I need? Maybe a bit of rest before, maybe a bit of rest after. So I finished on a Tuesday. So then I took 3 days of rest where I did nothing. And then I was back out there on the weekend, and then doing another 4-day block. This one a little bit faster because the first one was a bit really easy pace, just the volume. So it's really a mix of trying to stay in altitude, that does a lot, and doing a lot of volume. My month of August was 700K and 60,000 meters of climbing. So yeah, it was pretty big. And a lot of it were really slow. My climb of Mont Blanc was actually just before my Tour de Glacier Reiki. It was August 1st. That was with my girlfriend, who's actually a great runner as well, but we took it really easy on that one. It was a 17-hour day, kind of easy pace, but you still do 4,000 meters of climbing in one shot, and then 4,000 meters of descent. This is awesome to build your legs. So what do you think happened when I went to Tour des Géants and you tell me, oh, be careful, there's a 1,500 meter descent? I'm like, no big deal. I've done it like dozens of times this year. I'm going for what I have to do, and I'm trying to do bigger. There's a lot of 1,300 meter climb in Tour des Géants. So my training is a lot of 2,000 meter climb. When you're used to doing 2,000 meter climb like it's nothing, then when you get to the 13, there's no climb that felt long during Tour. You're like, all right, I'll be out there for an hour and a half, maximum 2 hours. I'm used to doing 3-4 hour climbs. So that's kind of the mindset, is to really go what I love to do, making sure that I can recover in between. So there was something just to the 10 days before the race. I went for 4 days of just kind of hiking, easy running, like super chill. But I felt like, I felt a bit too tired, not too recovered. I wanted to sleep in altitude, and I cut it short. It was on, again, the weekend before Tour. And I cut it short because I thought having one more night in altitude is not going to get me as much as one more night in my own bed, sleeping well. Because in altitude, you don't sleep as well, especially in a refugio with other people. So I ended up cutting that weekend short. And of course, you start to think like, oh, is that a right idea? Because you try to always get on the edge and do as much as possible. But it's always better to arrive a 10% like less prepared or underprepared than 2% overtrained. And that's always trying to keep that in mind. As long as I feel great, I can pile up. And as much as I want to do and go do it. The minute I don't want to do it, or I feel too tired, then I take a rest day, or 2 or 3 or 4 if that's needed. I think in August, so the month after Tour, I probably had a span of 4 or 5, maybe not 5, but 4 days, four rest days in a row, which I probably was the only one preparing Tour doing this in August. And yet I still had some of the biggest volume of everyone.
Yeah, whenever you look at that 700K and 60,000 meters of vert, if you actually divide it by the amount of actual activity days, it's probably quite a lot per day.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the average, if you're thinking about taking the rest days out of that, and just for the audience, like these days that you were on the 450 course, there was a couple of days and they were touching on 60Ks or close to 60Ks, and we're talking 3,000 plus meters of gain. So these are massive, massive days. I think I saw that there was like a reasonably big pack as well. So are you carrying weight? What is the intensity? Like these are big, big days. And like one thing I also want to reference is, you know, it's coming sexy again, uphill athlete training philosophy because of Tom and Ruth winning at UTMB. But, you know, what does Scott Johnson say about heavy weight on your back hiking uphill? It's great muscular endurance for ultra trail.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I do believe in that. I have a one of my teammates, Jolie, who's using. We have a back with Kailas. There's a backpack that's called the rock climber or something like this. I think that's the exact name. And he's actually putting rocks in there and tossing them at the top. If anybody is using weights to go up, I would suggest obviously dropping the weight once you're at the top, be it water or rocks. Do not go down with it because then you're actually smashing your knees and quads if they're not ready on the downhill. So be careful with going downhill with weight. I would not recommend that. And that's usually the problem for many people. Uphill training is fine, but then you have to go down. So be careful with that weight. It happens to me, especially on the Stairmaster, for example, to put a weight vest and have a little extra. Again, when you're really, tight in time and you want to do something like create a different type of stimulus, then maybe. But for me, if time is not a problem, if I go spend a long day in the mountain, I'd rather have a lighter bag and just go do something longer, or maybe increase a little bit the speed rather than having the extra weight. It's not essential. Again, if it's an additive on top of your already good training, fine, but it's not necessarily the go-to that I would put to somebody who has access to the mountain. Somebody who doesn't have access to the mountain, kind of different. And that could be stairs and stuff to do with the back. Why not? But again, it's not necessarily a key for me, the extra weight. I had a pack. So when I go for 10 days, you still need to have, it was very light for 10 days, but you still need, I had a couple change of clothes and something to sleep in and a towel and a bunch of gels and recovery drinks. I mostly took recovery drinks and sports drinks as well to have at least some calories and give to my body the stuff that the body needs and also the stuff that it needs to get used to for the race. If you spend your whole month of August and your whole summer eating only at the Refugio, when you get the engineered sports food during the race, your body may not be used to it. So I still took some of it. So I had a couple extra kilos. Funny thing about this is after 4 days, my weight, my backpack started to lose some weight. So I was pretty happy with this. And then there's somebody at the Refugio telling me, oh, so you're going to that Refugio like 30K further? I'm like, yeah. Oh, could you bring that for me there? And he gave me a big pot of blueberry jam. Like, sure, let me add a kilo, like 600 grams to my pack. After I was happy to see it go down. Again, the Refugio lady who received it at Refugio Coda, she loved it. She was so happy with the surprise. And then when I came during the race, she actually came and gave me a big hug. So yeah, it all makes it worth it. But yeah, so the bag was as light as possible, but you still need a few things. But I still needed to move. Then I did another one for 4 days where this one, I wanted to push a little bit the pace. So I kept it especially light. That was just my regular running pack. Then I went back for 4 more days. But this time we're getting closer to the race, maybe 2.5 weeks before the race. So I went there with a big ass pack because I had my laptop in there and I would basically just do small days to go from one Refugio to the next. And then at the Refugio, I would just spend some time working on my laptop and doing a few things. So that's when I had really a big bag. I had a couple pair of shoes, etc. But this was just walking. I didn't run with that. It was 10 or 15 kilos, so I didn't run with this. But yeah, no, otherwise just trying to be as light as possible. Again, it's trying to be specific, right? So it might be better to go 2 times 4 days or 3 times 3 days than doing one block of 10 days if it allows you to have the exact same bag and gear that you're going to use for the race. So again, train to be as specific as possible as you get closer to the race. And that's true for everything, for what you eat, for what you drink, for the gear that you're using, for the weight that you're carrying. So yeah, that was mostly the thing, is how can I spend as much time, because I'm looking at time more than vert or distance or whatever, but as much time in the mountain in August, in high altitude, obviously, and trying to do everything that I'm going to do so that tour feels easy almost. And that's kind of what happened. Like every single climb or descent at tour felt like, yeah, sure, I've done worse in training a bunch of times.
Let's talk a little bit more about the race, and I'd certainly want to get into some specifics about it. But one of the things which caused, I mean, controversy might be a strong word, but let's say interactions, comments on social media was that, who is this guy that's running with a belt, who's got his mandatory gear in a belt? You had the poles in the front. And like, so I got so many questions about this, so much so that I sat down and asked your girlfriend, who was also your crew, tell me about the belt. I'm getting a lot of questions. I want to be able to answer people accurately. So my takeaway from it was, Martin is like, I already knew from before the race chatting to you, I was like, oh, Martin races with his head. Martin is like he's a smart runner. He's not like a brute force kind of runner. And a lot of people, including me, are thinking, next year, are we going to see people thinking, can I cut the weight down? Can I run with a belt? Are we going to start to see this trend coming into other ultra trail races? Because the less weight you carry, the faster you can be. You know, the more efficient you can be on the downhills. You're carrying less weight to impact on your legs potentially. So talk about, like, how did you have the idea to go with a race belt rather than a pack, and how do you think it worked out for you?
Yeah, so first I'd like to ironically thank you for that coverage that you gave, because that's the reason why there were so many people asking for it. And that's also the reason why out of 1,200 runners in Tour des Géants, only one got a mandatory gear check. That was me. I got there to the Refuge Obama, again, halfway through the race. I think I was in second place behind Franco at this time. And I got there and people asked me, oh yeah, we need to do a gear check. I'm like, just laughing, like, of course you do. Like I figured something would happen. But then what I didn't like is when the actual referee said, oh yeah, because there was some noise on social media. I'm like, if the referee want to check my gear, fine, but he shouldn't be taking his instructions from social media. You know, that felt a little bit like, how unfair is that? Like, did you check other people? Like, no, just you. I'm like, but again, fair enough, because I was kind of pushing the envelope. Now, what I don't like necessarily is I was obviously carrying everything. I'm always carrying all the mandatory gear, even how, if I think it's stupid or totally useless, I'm always carrying it. The problem is some people, maybe with their bag, were probably not carrying the whole thing. So it's a little bit kind of annoying that I'm the only one being checked, but so be it. It's fine. Yeah, so it's definitely lighter, you know, with the belt, and then having the weight around your waist, also next to your center of gravity, feels a little bit less heavy at this time. I was mentioning my friend from Kailas, Tom Jolie, before, with the rock in the pack. He's also one to race with his head, and also one who loves the fanny pack. He's known in the team as fanny pack guy. If Kailas actually developed the belt, it's mostly thanks to him. And he's using that as much as possible. He tried to do UTMB using only a double fanny pack. Now, for me, it feels like super big, because the UTMB, there's a lot of mandatory gear. So it's a bit too much. But here, I was thinking about it with a friend of mine who was in my crew, who told me, hey, we should do something like have your bag, like a full replacement bag ready with everything, so that you can come, take off the bag and put the other one. That's something that we see in Western States or places like this where seconds matter. And I told him, like, yeah, why not? But, you know, we're fighting to the minute in Tour, but not to the second. So it's fine, you know, I can take it. But then just by thinking about this, that allowed me to get my mind going. And during one of my recce, I arrived in Refugio Cuni, about 280 kilometers into the race. But that wasn't, again, in training. And I got there I would spend the night in the refugio. So I dropped my bag there, and I just took a flask and my poles, and I say, oh yeah, I'm dropping the bag. I'm going to a summit that was just on top, and then I'll go back down for dinner. And as soon as I got out, after an 8-hour day where I felt tired, immediately felt amazing. Like, oh, this is incredibly light, and more than the weight, because you still need to carry everything. So the only thing you save is kind of the weight of the backpack. It's not that much in terms of weight, honestly. If you carry all your gear, it's not that much saving. However, it's the feeling, that feeling of being free. The restriction also on your breathing, when the bag is, if you want it, and the Kaila's bags are incredible, nothing moves. But if you don't want things to move, they need to be tight, right? So you're not breathing exactly the same. And that feeling of, having the wind in your t-shirt, like, that was just incredible. So immediately I thought, that's what I'm looking for, is that feeling more than the weight. I need to have that feeling during my race. So then I started to look like, how can I optimize my gear so that I can put everything in the belt, for example. And I ended up tweaking a little bit my shorts and sewing something. It's my girlfriend actually who did, not me, which is credits where credit is due. So we sewed a couple of loops to put the belt, and another loop on the side to put the pole, and another loop on the side to put my jacket. So I could actually put the jacket next to my belt. And then there's a couple things that are important when you're considering something like this. We might see a couple people doing that next year, but it won't be everybody, because you still need a lot of drinks, a lot of food with you for some of the long stretches. So it depends on the weather as well. The weather was perfect this year. When it's not as good, you might need gloves, you might need hats, you might need a jacket. So it's not as easy to carry everything with you, just in a belt. And also you need to have your crew at enough points that you're not, basically what I calculated is up to 3 hours without seeing my crew, I can go with the belt. If I go more than this, because of all the fueling that I need, etc., it's a little bit tricky. So I ended up spending half of the race with the belt, the other half was my backpack. And again, am I saving a lot weight-wise? Not much. Am I saving a lot in terms of the mental energy and the feeling of, like, I was smiling every time I left the bag and I just run out with my belt. Every time I passed a runner who asked me, like, oh, you don't have a pack? Like the one that you saw with Cornell. I had a smile, like, nope. But everything was there. I had all my gear. And when they did the check, I was okay. So I think it was more of a mental thing, like you said, racing with your head. More than this weight save, it's the energy gain that I got from, I'm crushing it. I'm here with the bag. I'm the only one with the belt. I'm the only one doing this. So it's knowing that on that given section, I am optimized. And then let's see what happens. But I don't have any regret of, oh, maybe that was too much. No, it's optimized. And that was the main thing.
And in those 3-hour stretches where you would be using the belt, what were you carrying? What were you carrying? I can remember seeing poles, tracker, a flask, but I couldn't see anything else, but those were the things that were coming in and out, and obviously the tracker was flashing, so I could see that. So what else were you carrying in that belt?
So in my shorts, the XBionic shorts, I had my Kaila shorts. That are the one that have the belt included, plus an extra Kaila belt in some places. Because after a while, you start losing weight, and my shorts was a little bit too wide at some point. So I was losing my shorts with everything that I had in the belt. I was running with Simone at halfway through the race, and I showed him. I was seen running, holding my short with my hand because it was dropping otherwise. So I love something. Yeah, that's not completely optimized yet. I still need to get some work on this. But then inside, I had the XBionic shorts, compression gear, that had a little zipper in the back, usually for people to put their keys or their phone. In 3 years, I had never used it. And I was even blaming, what is that thing? It's extra weight and bothering me. And then I realized it's exactly the size of the 2 survival blanket and the ID. So I had my ID and the 2 survival blanket directly in, almost next to my skin, directly in the compression shorts. That was already great. That's when I realized, like, everything can fit. Then we had the 2 headlamps and 2 batteries. So during the night, I'm actually using the 2 headlamps. So it's fine. I don't need to carry anything extra because I'm using both of them. And those are powerful headlamps. But during the day, you need to have 2 headlamps. There's no power, like minimum power. So I had very tiny headlamps with tiny batteries. I would never use them. But then when the night came, I would drop them and put the big ones on my head. So I always had 2 headlamps. They were not always the 2 same headlamps. You need a phone, obviously. So the phone, same. I bought a Nokia phone that worked, obviously. I used it during the race, sent a couple texts to my crew, but made it super light and pretty small. You had a cup for food and for drink, 2 different ones. And then you had the GPS tracker. When we got to the bib ceremony and I got my GPS tracker, it was twice the size as the one from last year. That pissed me off because I was like, oh no, that might have screwed my whole plan with my belt, actually, right? So I managed to put it there, but again, added some weight and then a bit of food and drink, and that's about it. So again, it can fit, depends on the amount of food and drink that you need. And again, you need to grab your flask instead of having it directly there, so takes a bit more time to drink. It's not perfect, and it's not going to be a game changer to the point where everybody's going to do that next year. But I personally loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Like, just the very fact that in nice weather, it's nice not to have another layer.
Yeah.
Which essentially a vest is another layer of material. So it's absolutely nothing to do with the actual weight. It's to do with more like less insulation.
Yeah.
Whenever you can just feel the wind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I'm glad that we could dig into that so that the last of the people that are really interested have a very complete set of answers now about the belt.
It's, again, because of what it takes in terms of having your crew at different points. I don't think it's even doable for anybody beyond the top 10 or top 20, or at least, doesn't even matter the ranking, but you need to have a crew who's everywhere, both in the villages, but also in the refugio, everywhere where it's allowed, obviously. And that's what I had. That's what not that many people have, even at the front. We all have crews at the villages, for sure, whereas most people have maybe crew at the live base, and maybe no one, right? Some people have their bag, and the huge majority of people don't have a crew. But then when you have the villages, it's fine. When you have the villages plus people in the mountains, that becomes possible. Otherwise, it's tricky, and because you're gaining so little, I wouldn't use the belt at the expense of having all the gear that you need and the food. If you're like, no, I'm not going to take this gel because it doesn't fit in my belt, just take a backpack. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the race and your mindset going into the race, but also throughout. And I'm reminded of a conversation that we had a few days before where you were talking about like what it takes to do well at certain distances. And it really kind of clicked with me when you said that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe you could just tell the audience what that was, and then talk about your mindset going into the race and how it developed as the journey went on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a kind of a theory that I came up with not that long before Tour. You were one of the first few people that I shared it with, and I could see like it rung a bell with you, and you're like, oh yeah, that's good. So yeah, sure. So the idea for me is looking at different distances of races, especially when it comes to mountain races, but it's true also for the road, but specifically here in the mountain. And after seeing what happened at UTMB, the different races, etc., so I kind of came up with that theory, let's say, or way to put things. For me, up to 50K, the fittest man wins. When I say man, it's man or women, obviously, based on the race, but the fittest man wins. No matter what, if you're the fittest, you're just gonna take the crown because it's too short to have anything else come in the way. So up to 50K, fittest man wins. Up to 100K, within the fit ones, you need to be fit, but within the fit ones, the hungriest man wins. Because then you need to be fit, but you need to also get the grit, to get to 100K. That's several hours, up to 10 hours or more. So it's, especially in the mountain, you need to be hungry on top of being fit. It's not enough. Then up to 100 mile, within the fit and hungry one, and there were probably 10, 15 of them, 20 of them at UTMB, then within the fit and hungry one, the smartest one wins. We could see it with Joseph Mestrale, the data analyst who helped Tom and Ruth win this year. Was Tom fitter than he has ever been? Probably not. Hungrier? Probably not. He had his kid, he has a thing in mind. He was fit and he was hungry. but he was smarter than he had ever been because he was smart enough to get surrounded by smart people as well. So he ended up winning, being the smart one. And then you get to Tour de Géants, and it's a whole other ballpark again, where you need to be fit, you need to be hungry, you need to be smart. Absolutely, race with your head. We just discussed it with the pack and everything. But then there's something more, where within the smart, fit, and hungry one, it's the smiliest, happiest one who comes out on top, because you need to keep that smile for the whole time. The minute you lose your smile, that's when things start to go to shit, right? So you need, on top of everything else, to be smiley and happy to be there. And that was my commitment for that the race this year, is to be smiling for 66 hours. And in my mind, if I did, then it would be enough to get to that finish line. Again, it's not enough to be smiling. You need to have the rest if you want to win the race. But that's what I wanted to demonstrate was the key. And I did pretty all right since I finished second place. Now the problem is I made a couple mistakes. So Victor was as fit, maybe a bit fitter than me, probably not hungrier, but he was a bit smarter in his strategy, with sleep, with everything. And again, I made a couple mistakes. But then apart from that, being so happy like this was an incredible strength for me. And I never really had a low point during the race. I had a point where I was tired, but I didn't have a mental low point. And that changes everything.
We do, like, we see this more and more each year, that the best are running with joy, happiness. They're able to smile, takes them, like, it's taken the mind away from the hurt. You know, like, one of the things that I've said to friends and in races or in training is that don't vocalize the pain, because that's one step past thinking about it. Like, once you've, like, it's almost like there's a path that you need to reverse back on. Like, if the knee's sore and you think about it, okay, that's bad. But if you then speak about it, it's worse. If you then tell somebody about it, it's even worse. And you can't just go from telling somebody about it to not thinking about it. You have to go from telling somebody to keeping your mouth closed, to stop thinking about it, to forgetting about it. Like, you have to reverse those thoughts. But whenever I saw you throughout the race, even whenever I could see that you were tired, you managed to smile and say, hi, good to see you, how are you, whatever. And I could see in your eyes that, like, this guy is tired. He's on a mission. How do you keep the joy? How do you keep happy? How do you keep smiling?
Yeah, it's exactly true what you were saying about, not mentioning it out there. And I had, so for me, everything that I've done for this race and in general is around the idea of personal commitment. I wrote a book about it called You Have My Word. And it's about committing to what's important to you, right? And committing to the process, committing to the steps. Can't commit to the results, only to the means and what you plan on doing out there. So I can't commit to, I commit to winning this race. No, can't. That depends on so many other variables and people, etc. However, you can commit to doing whatever you need to do during that race. And for me, beyond the physical side of things, it was really more the mental side of things. I committed to not be tired. So what that means, because if you're tired, right? And you can't avoid it. However, I had one of my mantra that was no time to be tired, no time not to smile, and no time not to say thank you. That was like the trifecta of my mental mottos. And what that means when I say no time to be tired, it's not, you can decide if your body's tired or not, but it's exactly what you said, is I don't have time to say that I'm tired. So I'm not allowing myself to tell my crew, oh, I'm tired. Nope. And even beyond my crew is to tell, I'm not allowed to have this thought. So having this and committing and giving my word from everything that I've worked and with the method that I developed and all of that, when I told that to my crew, what that meant is if there's any time during the race where I start to think, oh, I'm tired, I had this bell ringing, say, pop, 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 pop. Nope, you can say that, no time to be tired. And that really worked because it was a true commitment. So I felt like anything that's more important than being tired or winning the race is being true to myself and to my crew and keeping my word to them, right? So the minute I started to tell myself that I'm tired, I felt like I was breaking my word to them. And that's the most powerful thing that there is in my life. We are a social creature. We exist from our connection to other people. So imagining being tired, yeah, sure. Not winning the race, yeah, sure. Breaking my word to my parents and my girlfriend, no fucking way. And that's the guts talking, right? So the minute I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I'm like, no fucking way that you're having this thought out loud. And that made me smile, just thinking about like, yeah, no time to be tired. It's ridiculous, right? It's absurd. But that's what made me smile every time. So the minute you're tired, you create an automatic reaction in your mind where you turn from being tired to actually smiling. That changed everything. And like you said, you can't find a single picture. There's hundreds of them. You can't find a single picture of me not smiling during this race. And the last bit was no time not to smile, no time not to say thank you. I always say thank you here and there, but I wanted to go further just to keep that in mind, and also to say thanks to all the volunteers and the refugios and everywhere that we went through. So I decided to stop by every single one to give them a box of chocolate. So I think I don't know how much I paid, a few $100 of worth of chocolate to give out to all the refugio. So same, it was only possible because my crew was helping me on most of them. But there are a bunch of climbs where I was saving weight from using just a belt. But what did I do? I actually put chocolates and caramels in my belt, like maybe 200 grams, like the weight of my pack in chocolate, to bring to the refugio in the mountain. So yeah, like that would sound kind of ridiculous, but this extra weight, it was the weight of my smile. I'm like, that's fine. If it was an extra kilo, I'd be okay with it. So
Yeah,
race with the mind and with the heart.
That was actually something I had noted down to ask you about, because I was standing at the door of the Gresini Life Base, 205 kilometers into the race, and I saw you go over to the desk with a box of chocolates, and I recognized the box because I'd seen that same brand of chocolates sitting beside your crew, your kit, Neil, and I thought, is he bringing chocolates to give to the volunteers, the volunteers? So I'm glad that you've actually answered that question. So it's like you've programmed into your race strategy these ways of like sharing joy, which then make you happy, which then help you smile.
Absolutely. That was absolutely it. And that's where it almost kind of backfired, because it took away from the main goal of the race. At some point, I barely cared about winning. When Victor, and again, my whole life is about Tour, is about running Tour, is about ideally winning Tour, and I know I will win it. I know that if I don't, it's fine. But then when Victor passed me, I was so focused on, hey, look, it's just sharing the joy with my crew, with the volunteers, with everybody. It's just enjoying the moment, just being happy. My commitment was to be smiling and happy for 3 days. So the problem with this is when Victor passed me, instead of just going like, oh no, I'm going to catch him and I'm not letting him go, I was like, that's fine. I'm happy anyway. So it kind of backfired in a way, because I probably lost a little bit of my edge. No regret. That's totally fine. But yeah, that was my commitment. The most important for me was to enjoy, was to spend. I told my parents and my crew, we're going to spend the 3 most incredible days of the year. That was the most important. The final ranking and time, it's accessory. If we spend 3 beautiful days, and if I've done my training properly, it should end up with a decent race result, right? But that was no longer the priority. And that was one of my strengths, almost kind of my weaknesses maybe. But again, no regret.
They say that the race doesn't start until Gresini, so like 125, 130 kilometers to go. Did you have the race broke up into any mental sections? Was there a point when you thought, I want to have a different strategy from this point on? Talk about the mindset.
Yeah, so one thing that's key, and for me, that was a real turning point this year, and that's why also I wasn't unhappy. Like this, I spent the whole second part of the race thinking about next year. It's not like I gave up, like I was still giving my all, but I thought like, yep, nope, Victor, he has more experience. He crushed it this year. He is crushing it because it was still in the middle of the race. And I was almost not giving up because I pushed and pushed, but I was okay with, yep, he got it this year. But I'm using everything that I learned to come back next year, and I'm going to demolish the course record next year because of what I've learned this year. And mostly about sleep management. 2 years ago, I spent 65 hours, 66 without sleeping. I got all the way to Saint-Rémy, the last village, without sleeping. A little bit like Daniele Nava this year. When you saw him at the call, he had not slept in those 2 nights. And we had similar race that I had 2 years ago, where he was coming from behind and kind of getting up the ranks. when you're getting up the ranks like this and you don't expect to win the race, he was probably, hoping to have a good race, but not that good. So when you're getting up, he was not getting tired when he actually passed me for third place. And then he passed Louis because Louis pulled out, Louis Calais. And then he ended up second place. You think he was sleepy at this time? There's no way. He would never fall asleep. Now, when I passed him and when Simone, just behind me, passed him as well, then he ended up from second to fourth place. Whew. And then this whole dream that he was building just kind of collapsed in a minute. And I'm pretty sure, I didn't look at his split, but I'm pretty sure he went to sleep not long after that, or at least had a really tough time. That's what happened to me 2 years ago. I was crushing it, seventh place, following 4 guys that were running together. My mind is, if I pass them, I'm third place in Tour des Géants. Do you think I'm tired at this time? No way. It was only my second time doing this. I did not have the kind of hope and goals that I have today. So finishing third place in Tour at the time was insane. This year, I'm almost disappointed with my second place, but 2 years ago, third place. So I was not sleepy because my mind was firing on all cylinders. And that's what you need to have during Tour. Figure it out the way you want, but you need to have your mind firing. That's the only way to not just finish Tour. You don't need that to finish Tour, but to win Tour. You need that. And that's what I tried to reproduce. The problem is I became a little bit too good compared to how it was before. Because now, if I'm having a proper race after 100K, so last year I took the lead after 200K. This year, I was almost taking the lead after 100K. In Cognes, if I had sped up a little bit, I was in second place up to Col du Lozon before 100K, before Victor, and Victor was about to go to sleep. So I could have passed Victor and been in first place after 100K. 200K was already too soon, so I took it easier this year. I ended up almost taking the lead after 100K. So I got to Refugio Coda halfway through the race, and Silvano told me, the speaker told me, oh, you have the second best time ever to this point. So it was kind of a compliment, kind of saying, oh my God, amazing, you must be excited. And I remember thinking, oh shit, that's not good. How do I keep the motivation from there? I'm already kind of second place. I was only Franco, and I had a feeling that Franco, he had already some problems. So I had a feeling that he may not go all the way. So I was virtually leading the race, and there was 200K left. And I remember thinking it's too much because you cannot stay on fire when you're just looking behind your shoulder. So Victor, he got to first place after 100K, went to sleep, woke up, 19th position. You could think, oh, it's dead. No. He knew he has a lot of experience. He won all the big races in the Alps, the really big one. So he knew it's okay. He was in following his plan. And what happened is he would not only slept for a bit, so he got some energy back, and then he had 18 guys to pass. That's how his mind was firing up on all cylinders. And that's what I realized. Like, I need to go to sleep as well on that first night. Not for the sleep itself. Of course, it helps, But I could even just stop at Cognes with Victor, and I could have done some crosswords for an hour and a half, or like just having a tea or something, and let people pass, because then there's a new race starting. And that breaks down the race in bits where you're freaking hungry to go for it. It's the second part I said. Up to 100K is how hungry you are. And then you got to be smart and then happy. But if you're smart enough to cut your race in 100K bits where you're super hungry, all good. And I think that's the key really is not the having the sleep, it helps, but it's mostly having the fire. And I was trying to get the fire going and thinking, if the fire is going, you don't need to go to sleep. But it's the other way around, is that by going to sleep, that's how now I can get the fire to keep going. And that was revelation for me.
Is this... It feels like this is something that we get experience every time we do these things. It seems like this is a takeaway that you're going to be thinking about and trying to build into next year's strategy with all of the other pieces. This worked, this worked, this worked. This seems like it would work too. But you need to have confidence in yourself to also do that. Like, yeah. I can imagine me thinking that if I slept, like, well, I'm just going to get up and move at the same pace probably. And then I've just given up, 20 positions. So how do you think you could implement that?
So you talk about confidence. There's a key about confidence that people usually kind of have wrong, is that people think confidence is a requirement, right? They're going to think, once I have the confidence, or once I know it works, then I'll do this. It's the other way around. Like confidence is a result, it's a consequence. So you first do what you're afraid of doing, or you just give it a try. Then you get the results, and then the confidence grows. For you or for anybody who just want to, like, I don't know if that works. The only way to know is to try. And that's a good thing for me, is I'll be at tour for the next 10 years, 15 years. So I can try things, but also because it's my key race, I'm going to try before. So now what I'm doing, and I've been doing already for the past 2 weeks, is I've been building my schedule. I had nothing planned really, but now I've been building my 2026 schedule with big races that are important, but not as important as tour for me, where I will be training for that sleep and for that train to fall asleep. Because if that allows me to let people pass and have this fire, it's great, but I need to also be able to use that time to sleep. I'm not actually going to do crosswords during the race, right? So then I need to train, and I'm going to use those to build that confidence that I know, yeah, it works. And now I'm getting that confidence. It's not even the confidence that this is the right thing to do or that it's going to work for me. It is the right thing to do, but not that it's going to work for me. But now I got the confidence that by not doing it, I cannot compete with guys like Victor or like Louis Calais, who was also crushing it, having slept the first night. Because again, they get back out there with the energy and with the distance. And this is something that you get, like you said, only with experience. The experience that I got 2 years ago, where I didn't sleep for 66 hours, it was a blessing in disguise, or kind of because it allowed me to think, oh yeah, I don't need to sleep. But that's not good, because it was a case where I ended up being on fire for 66 hours. But given how fast I became and with my training and everything, I cannot have that hunger for 66 hours, because after 20 hours, I'm already in the lead. So I need to factor in that thing as well. And so now I have the confidence, not necessarily that I will be able to fall asleep, but I have the confidence that if I don't, Louis is going to pass me next year. Victor shouldn't be there. I think he's coming back in 2 years. But Louis is going to pass me next year, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I have the confidence that it is the right thing to do, even if I don't know how to do it yet.
Leading into the race, a lot of the athletes that I spoke to, the strategy was no sleep. Maybe, I take a nap if I need to take a nap. But it feels like that is almost going to be on its head for next year, and that there actually will be strategic sleep for various reasons. But it's not before this conversation did I ever think that it was to rekindle hunger, like that feeling of the chase rather than the hunted. So I think that's a really interesting takeaway from this.
And I think, because I don't even know if the people who do sleep, and I don't think next year is going to be a lot. It's going to be Louis and me. I don't think anybody else, because, the whole habits die hard. People think they didn't have the race they wanted, so they're going to find any other excuses to explain, and they don't realize that was the main reason. The same reason that people go out too fast. They don't feel like they go out too fast. Then they blow up, but they're going to say, no, it's because I didn't eat right. Yeah, you didn't eat right because you started too fast. So I don't think it's going to be many people. Like, it's going to take a few years before it becomes evident. Like, it will take one of us to actually destroy that course record. And Victor beat it by half an hour. But I think it will take somebody getting to 64 hours for other people to go, oh yeah, no, I think there's no way that we can finish this without the sleep. But I think it's another 2 or 3 years before it becomes really mainstream to sleep on the first night, if that ever happens. Because again, people keep going out too fast. They keep making the same mistakes. So I think people will keep making the same mistakes, and I'm all happy for it, right? Victor and Louis were already looking at me this year thinking, well, we're pretty happy that go do no sleep. And they knew that they would kind of pass me. And I had the strategy of not sleeping when I need to. So I did sleep the second night in Champoluc. And then if I didn't finish tied with Simone, we didn't lose a lot of time. Both of us did lose time by sticking together at the end and just stopping the actual racing each other. But I was on track to finish sub 69 hours. And so again, that shows that, hey, look, you can finish 69 hours with just the strategy of go to sleep only if you need to. But still, I would have been 3 hours behind Victor.
Yeah. I think, like, looking at Victor, how he was in the closing stages of the race, like, he didn't seem good.
Yeah.
Like, he was, I don't know, I looked at him and I was surprised that he was still able to move well enough to maintain his pace. So there's even potential that Victor himself could have run it much faster if he had actually slept more.
So he tried to sleep, he struggled. Then there's a question of you need to manage to successfully sleep, right? And that could be the sleep, but I think that it's also back to the hunger. So what I'm thinking a lot is, that's why I don't have any regrets about this race, is that if I had pushed a bit more, done a bit different, and avoid, because I made a couple mistakes, a bit silly from the start. Had I not made those mistakes, I might have been also in the 66-hour range. So then you think, oh, you could have won. And I'm like, no. Because if I had been in the 66-hour range, I'm pretty sure Victor would have been an hour faster. You got to keep in mind, he got to Cognier, was in the lead. So he was already faster. He had the fastest time to Cognier ever. Then he went to sleep. Then he passed 18 people to get back in the lead before Gressonnet, before Niel even. Then he went to bed. He didn't sleep too much in Champoluc, but still, he got back up and he left before I could even arrive, and I was in second place. So from there, he did almost 150K completely on his own. Of course, he had the record in sight. But honestly, when you're at that level, when you're so freaking tired, the record is not as, and he got it in the end, so he's still, but between beating the record like he did and smashing the record, going an hour faster, he didn't have the incentive to go faster. But I'm pretty sure the moment when he was really tired, if you told him, oh, there's Martin who's 20 minutes behind, you would have got up and he would have gone out firing. And that's where I think he says there's a chance that somebody gets down to 60 hours. That seems crazy, but maybe. But it will take two people. It won't take one. It will take two people to fight all the way to the finish.
That could be you and Louis next year.
That's the plan. Watch the space. I think that's exactly how the race is going to unfold next year. Yeah.
If we take distance and that race out of the equation, the way to get the fastest times is for two people to be racing for it. So that's how you kind of you squeeze the last bit out.
UTMB 22 with Kilian and Mathieu Blanchard. I mean, that's exactly what happened, right? Both of them together would have been slower. Each of them individually would have been slower, but together they pushed themselves to the max.
I want to touch on the end of the race. I was standing at the park, less than maybe just over half a kilometer from the finish line, waiting, and I was chatting to some volunteers and some other people that were standing waiting, who's it gonna be? And my money was on Martin. I was like, I've seen this guy descend. I know that descent is steep and it's going to be hard for a lot of people to run that at the end of Tour de Géants, but I was confident that you were going to come down there first. And then you and Simone came through together and finished for joint second. Talk about at what point in the race did it get to that agreement, and just talk around that subject.
Yeah. So funny thing is I caught Simone. So first thing to know, Simone had finished second already in Tour de Géants 3 years ago. He's an incredible runner. I think ITRA score 860, 870. I mean, he's really strong. We talked about marathon pace. I think 3 weeks after his Tour de Géants 3 years ago, second place, he did a marathon in 2 hours 23 or something like this. I mean, he's crazy fast, really strong runner. And I caught him getting to Planaval, so after 50K into the race, before the first live base. Caught him there. And I was pretty happy to see him because I'm like, that means I'm going, I'm in good shape. Because, to catch a guy like this early on, it was pretty good. And we were about 5th or 6th position. Then we spent a lot of time together. This was 6 hours into the race. We spent the next 40-something hours being kind of neck and neck, never being too far from each other, spending a lot of time together. Some of the climbs the first night, we did almost the whole first night together. I mean, it was really cool. And again, so being pretty close. And at some point in Q&A, so after I saw you, I just had passed Louis. So I knew, okay, now second place, I mean, it's completely open, even if I had to catch Daniele. So then I started to, again, I passed another gear and I went really fast. That's when you saw me also going downhill so comfortably, is because I was on my cloud of I was so sad to see Louis pull out. I stayed 20 minutes chatting with him because I was really in tears for him having to pull out of the race. But after that happens, I'm like, all right, now second place is not a given, but kind of. So I was on my cloud and just going all out. And going all out for 10 hours from Refugio Maggia, kilometer 270, 280, to Pontei, kilometer 310, something like this. Going all out. Really strong. We cut some time on Victor, even though he was actually running by daylight and we were running nighttime. So it was pushing like crazy. And every time I looked back, Simone was nearby. Not directly nearby, he was only like 5 to 10 minutes behind. But when I would leave an aid station, I could hear him arrive to the aid station. And I would never drop him despite really pushing. Like, damn. I mean, then you realize, yeah, now I'm at that level where I'm competing with those guys who were worlds apart, you know, a couple of years ago. And then you realize, yeah, this is no joke. You can't drop those guys. And then we got to Pontei, where I had a problem on the descent. I was almost half an hour ahead of him, and I had a problem with the descent with my headlamp, and I had some issues, and I had to walk, I had to sit down. It took me a lot of time. And then I got to the descent, and I looked back, and I could see the lights almost next to me. It was half an hour behind the Refugio before. I'm like, I couldn't get it. So I saw my crew there. I asked them, like, do you see 2 lights going down? And they said, oh yeah, and the second one was fast. He was giving his everything on the downhill just to catch me because he knew he had to stay close to me. So then to the Refugio and changing my shoes, and he get there, he looks destroyed. But again, can look destroyed, but keep going for hours, right? So then we chat a little bit, and I said, all right, ready to go. So we went together out of the Refugio. We walk a little bit. And then fairly soon, kind of asked him, like, hey, basically, like, hey, should we keep fighting like this, or should we kind of finish together, make sure that we are ahead of 4th place guy, and then we share 2nd place? And he jumped on the opportunity, like, oh yeah, no, pleasure, yeah, all good, because we both knew we couldn't catch Victor unless he had a problem. And we had just spent 55 hours kind of neck and neck, plus another, 5 just going all out and racing each other. So it felt like we had this kind of moment of big racing. We both deserve to be in 2nd place, and it's all right. It's both. Basically, it's a way to secure that 2nd place already now. So of course, I felt like I'm probably fresher than him. I just changed my shoes. Downhill, I felt really strong, and I could. And it's true. On the last downhill, I could take anyone on the last downhill. I would not be worried about anyone. So of course I could do something like this, not say anything, and then drop him on the last descent. But that was not the point. We had lived something pretty intense already together and individually. So we kind of agreed to just go and let's finish that together. It was also a way to make it easier on our crew, especially mine, because my friend Ian was about to go to Frassati. So he was about to get a vertical kilometer to go and crew me over there. And basically by getting to the next station and say, no need to go to Frassati, we're all good, we can see you at the finish. I mean, we'll finish together, except there's a problem. So that was a way to kind of allow my crew a good night of sleep, kind of, or at least to just take the pressure down. And to, of course, to edge the risk of not finishing 3rd, because you never know with a guy like this. I may have a problem or something and he passes me, finish it 3rd place again, would have been bothering me a little bit. Whereas 2nd place, whether it's joint or not, it's 2nd place. And on top of it, by being a joint 2nd place, it put again this human experience and journey back at the center. And like I said before, it had been the core of this year at Tour. So it felt like it made sense. On top of it, it allowed us to arrive in daylight and have an incredibly moving finish line with lots of people present. There was a whole class of school boys and girls, and it was just incredible. The only kind of regret that I may have is that we lost way more time than I thought, because we were both going to be sub 70 hours. I think I could have gone sub 69, and we ended up almost at 72. Because again, then we took time, 20 minutes at each refugio, chatting with the volunteers, and it was amazing. But it just felt that's the only type of, not even a regret, again, no regret, but there's something that I'm thinking, I wish I had a 69-hour Tour de Géants under my belt, and I don't. But again, I'll be there for many years and I'll own that record at some point. So I'm like, it's just a matter of time. I don't mind.
Yeah, thanks for digging into that and shedding some light, because almost nobody knows the story of how that happened until we saw you at the last 5 minutes or less of the race. We see this in ultra trail. We see the joint finishes, and I guess it's kind of controversial at times. But I think if it's not first place, then I think then it's also a way of just showing that it's more than a race. Like if it's for first place,
I would not have done it for first place. I would not have proposed, and I would not have accepted if he had suggested. So no, first place. Yeah, I would have won, especially with how much that came into this and how big this race is. If it's a small race in the countryside, no, I wanted my win to be mine, or not as in a selfish thing, but to deserve it, let's say. Or I wouldn't like to finish thinking, he could have dropped me on the descent, for example, that would not have felt like a win in Tour de Géants for me, especially my first win. If I win 2, 3, or 4 of them, then maybe. But yeah, we discussed it with Louis actually last year. Like we could end up spending some time together, but at the end, it would be every man for himself and be okay. Like kind of shake hands on the last uphill or downhill and be like, may the best man win, and no regret if you finish second place.
I'm respectful of your time, and I think we need to get towards wrapping it up now. But before we do, I just want to touch a little bit on gear. One of the things that surprised me this year was how many of the Kailas athletes were using the EX Pro shoe, especially since the 330 is the Tour de Géants shoe, as they say, and because it's a bloody amazing shoe.
Yep.
But so many were using the Pro shoe, and I was honestly thinking they'll all be swapping to the 330 at some point, and I think quite a lot did, but it was really late into the race. So why did you choose to race the Tour de Géants in the carbon-plated shoe, and what was the trigger to then change shoe into the 330?
So I had 5 pair of shoes for the race. I did the X Pro, so the carbon plated, then the 330, then the DU Speed for the very technical section between Donas and Gressoney. Then got back to I had another one. Got back to the X Pro. Then I had a pair of X3 for a little bit, and then I had the 330. So yeah, I took a lot of shoes. And again, having my crew everywhere meant that I could do that. I would not say that it's mandatory or necessary to do that. If you have only one pair of shoes in your drop bag, that's fine. Having only one pair of change is enough. I mean, if you don't have a choice, of course. Last year at UTMB, they just released the X Pro. It was still a prototype, actually, and the X330. It was just an X, to put that back in context, is really the range of ultra distance shoes at Kailas, right? Kailas has become some kind of an expert in ultra distance. As soon as it's X something, it's going to be the long distance. So incredibly comfy and a lot of cushioning, etc. So yeah, they just released prototypes for the X Pro and the X330, and a journalist came and asked me, "Oh yeah, can you shed some light on the difference between those shoes?" And I smiled and I said, it just came up to me like on the moment, and I looked at him and said, "It's pretty easy." I showed it the X330 and say, "This is the shoe to finish Tour de Géants." And I showed the X Pro and said, "This is to win Tour de Géants." And they were like, "Okay, got it. Like it makes sense, The point is, both of them are fine with really long distance, super comfy. But with the X Pro, they're just truly incredible in terms of the reactivity, the stability compared to the X330, which maybe the new model is perfect, but the model before was, because of the stack, a little bit unstable at times when going really fast for me on the downhill. So for me, the difference really is what kind of downhill there is, if it's technical downhill or if it's a rolling one. If it's really rolling, the 330 are going to be great. If it's a bit more technical, then I'm going to prefer the X Pro. But again, I could have done the whole race with the X Pro or the whole race with the 330, and I'd be all right. But the X Pro, when you put your feet in there, it's the best trail running shoe I've ever tried. Now it's not the one that I would recommend for most people because it's pretty freaking expensive. So again, if you have deep pockets and you're fine, it's okay. Otherwise, I would suggest the 330, which are priced in line with most of the other brand without the carbon plate. And for such a distance, it's not like you're using the full benefits of the carbon plates anyway. We're not really running at 4-minute pace at the end of tour.
I kind of liken the Kailas EX shoes as it feels like they're a combination, or they're like a mixture of, like, if Hoka tried to make a La Sportiva. It's like a true mountain shoe, but with other influences or things in it. So I was always a La Sportiva guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
they make great shoes. They're durable, and they're designed in places that I like to run.
Yeah.
And I think when I put on and used the 330 and then the Pro, I loved those shoes because they're great on technical ground. The grip is great. I think it makes a big difference. Just the sharpness, even to the lugs, just that little subtle detail makes a difference as well. So, but I had to ask why the Pro, because that was getting to me.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, the shoe itself is fantastic. So when you're going fast, it's pretty awesome. You put them on, and Louis Calais was using the Pro mostly in training and everything, and he loved them. He used the X330, and it's the combination of this with the insoles that he has. He was not using them a lot. He loves them. They're incredibly comfortable, the 330. But that's what created the problem for him, where again, he's not used to that shoe. It's almost like he used a new shoe during the race. So I think he should have stick probably to the X Pro. And I think it's probably a bit of, the marketing and all of that. For many people, X Pro, that says Pro in it, so it feels like, ooh, yeah, that's the one for the race. And it's true, it's kind of the racer. But in a race like Tour des Géants, the 330 is probably more suited for most people. But yeah, I mean, the X Pro is fantastic. It's also a bit less durable because the foam is incredibly fragile because it's so, again, so light. And so again, I don't recommend it to most people unless really budget is not an issue. In that case, it might actually be the best shoe that you ever tried.
All right. Last question as we wrap things up. Your mind has led you to these super long races. Makes me think you would be perfectly suited to the Tour de Glacier and the 450 kilometer. I want to say that I can imagine that you had this appetite for years and years of the Tour de Géants, but maybe there's a Tour de Glacier in some of these years just to split it up, like to change the training stimulus, to have a break from the 330. Like, what are your thoughts about like the 450 or other super long races?
450 is just incredible. The course is just incredible. It's, again, even longer, but the point is not just to go longer, is to stay high in altitude. So Tour des Géants, you're going all the way around the Aosta Valley, going up from Villaggio to Villaggio, stopping by the col that's in between, right? So you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. In Tour de Glacier, you stay up. It's 450K. There's like 4 villages, or 5 maybe for the whole thing. It's just crazy. And you go from Refugio to Refugio. You stay really high. 450K, there's more than half of it at 2,000 or 2,500 meters. It's just crazy. It's beautiful, incredibly wild. There's going to be no one there. Very technical as well. So the most technical part of Tour des Géants feels like the easy part of Tour de Glacier, kind of. Much less rolling, especially downhill. That's part of the reason why I love the Géants. I mean, it's a bit more suited to me because of, again, you're able to run down much more than on the Glacier, where it's very technical. No assistance, so no course marking, but I love that. The self-navigation is awesome. No assistance. That's something that I love with Tour des Géants, is the shared adventure with my crew. My parents are there, and so having to go there and basically tell them, oh yeah, you don't need to come this year because I'm going to do Glacier. It would be almost a bit frustrating, to not have this shared adventure. However, for personal adventure, that's even crazier. Now, the real reason, because I love the course. I discovered it this year, and I will do it probably every year. Next year, I'm thinking about doing the Glacier in the other way, the other direction, but in training again. Training allows you to see it only by daylight, so you enjoy it even more. It's just so gorgeous compared to spending 3 or 4 nights of seeing nothing. It's a bit of a shame. And then the main thing is the competitiveness. I want the tough one, right? I want the
That just means my wife's home. Sorry.
All right, that's
If you could just start that sentence again.
yeah. So for me, the main difference, the main thing that makes me hesitate is the competitiveness. I really want something that's competitive. The Géants, that's what's exciting, is that we were 5-10 of us vying for the win this year. And in the lineup of elite runners, I'm saying 5-10 for the win, but there were 20-25 really, really strong runners. In Tour des Glaciers, want to know how many really strong runners there were this year? He struggled. Seb Rechon, who won, he struggled. He was sick for the whole race. At some point, he told us like he was waiting for other people to catch him and to pass him so he could take it easy and take a whole night. And it didn't happen, so he had to continue. But he almost like the win kind of happened on his way, kind of thing. So, and same last year. So he won. I don't know how much of a lead he had. He was 10 hours slower than his best time, and he still won by landslide. Last year, my friend Tian won with a 16-hour lead. So honestly, going to Tour des Glaciers to be on my own for 110 hours, 20 hours, even if I were to win, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed win, of course, because Seb would be a great runner. But if Seb is not here, unless I screw up the race, for anybody who's in the top 10 of Tour des Géants, it would be a guaranteed win almost on the glacier. So not too interested. However, what's going to happen is that 1 year we'll all get together. Well, I mean Seb, I mean Victor, I mean Louis Calais, I mean those kind of guy. We all want to do glacier. We all love the idea of having no crew, finding your own route. We're all in love with this kind of idea. Victor actually finished second in the glacier, but that was years ago when it was even less competitive. So what's going to happen is 1 year, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, maybe 2030, I don't know. We're all going to kind of agree, be at least 4 or 5 of us getting to the glacier. And this year, the 450 might actually be even more interesting than 330 to follow. But until that happens, I want to go where the competition is. I'd rather be second in Tour des Géants than winning Tour des Glaciers.
Interesting. Yeah, that does sound exciting. Because we move up the distance to a point. There's a reason why you're at 330 and racing in these sort of distances, and it's a progression, but it has to be accompanied by competitiveness as well.
Exactly. For me, 330, the reason why I keep coming back to Tour des Géants, I say it's like a Venn diagram, with those two circles. Basically, here you have all the race where I can be good at. So it has to be long. 100 mile, of course, I'm decent at 100 mile. But even if I spend my whole life on UTMB, the best I could do would be maybe cracking the top 10, top 5 if 1 year. Even that sounds crazy to say, and that would be a few years down the road. But I could never win a UTMB. It's just, be reasonable. It's just not possible. So there's the race that I could be good at. And then there's the amazing, crazy international major races that seems like a dream to actually win. And Tour des Géants is the only one that's in both categories. There's no other race of that magnitude in terms of like the reputation that I could win. I don't have the level on anything shorter. And anything longer doesn't have that competitiveness. Winning Swiss Peaks or this kind of races, it's cool, but it's like, sure. Come race with the big guys after that, right? So
yeah, the Tour des Géants is the UTMB of the 200-mile world by a head and shoulders gap. Last question, I promise. Like, as we see UTMB, for example, become more competitive, and we probably need to jump back like 5-6 years when we were starting to see, the depth, like the first 5 are really fast. And then last year we saw Francois then move up from the 100-mile to the Tour des Géants. Do you see over the next few years runners graduating? Could we call it graduating to the Tour des Géants? Like, it seems like a natural thing that's going to happen.
Some of them will. Like again, Francois, we had Benyat Marmisol. I know that Jean-Philippe Choumi is interested. I'm sure that Mathieu Blanchard is going to get to it at some point. So some of them will, some of them won't, because there's a gap. When you get to Tour, it's something else. UTMB it's almost like it's a 20-hour sprint now. there's not that many unknowns. It's just, yeah, when I go do 100-mile, there's almost no more this dimension of I don't know what I'm getting into. Yeah, you know what you're getting into. 20 hours from there, you'll be done. Tour is really something else. So it's not going to appeal to everybody because it's going to scare a lot of people. There's also a lot of specific training that go for it, a lot of recovery. I mean, it's massive. For some people, it takes months to recover from it. So there will be more and more for sure. We can see it already. You know, every year it's the field is getting more dense and lots of people are looking at it and being more interested. But it will never be like UTMB, in my opinion. It won't be. It's too hard, too far, too much. So some people will, but you won't have that same. You know, all the people who go out like all guns blazing on UTMB and who blow up quickly, those will never. First of all, they never have what it takes to do good at Tour, but they will never have what it takes to line up for Tour. And it's fine, you know, like it's not for everybody. And many people are much more dangerous, and I could never beat them on UTMB, but just they're not interested in coming to that level. It's the same reason that Rémi Bonnet, who's the absolute superstar of like vertical kilometer and stuff like that, I don't know. Maybe we'll see him one day on longer trails, maybe UTMB, maybe never. So far, he's still crushing it on short distance, so he would be wrong to kind of graduate, like you said. But maybe he never will. Maybe we'll stick to this kind of distances, and the longer it might go, might be 50K or 70K. So we don't know. It's gonna grow, and it's growing every year in popularity, and the level is gonna be every year more impressive, but only to a certain point, in my opinion.
Yeah, the 100K or the CCC to the UTMB feels like a step, a very mentally, physically, a step that's easy to do. But the UTMB to Tour de Géants, that's several steps,
Yeah.
and there's no steps in between.
Yeah.
So very few people choose it. And I think it's interesting, some of the athletes that you mentioned there, because one of the things that I would associate with some of these people like Matteo Blanchard is he does seek some adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
In his races also. So no, that's a great point.
Adventure guys, and it's real mountain guys. The runner types, UTMB is their maximum. You know, if they started with short distances, yeah, they're not interested in going further. However, the true mountain adventure guys, they're interested in, oh, what's over there? What's on that other side that I don't know if I'm capable of doing? That's interesting.
Yeah, that is the thing that sparks so much hunger for the ultra is, can I do it?
Yeah.
I think I can. Let's try. Anyway, look, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
So did I.
Martin, thanks so much for your time, and congratulations once again on your amazing second place at the Tour de Géants.
Thank you very much.